podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Yeah, the R word is a bad word, but, you know...
You shouldn't talk about Rio that way. He'll sign a new contract, honest.
And so, let's do that first. What's going on with Rio's contract, Ed?
Well, I mean, he's running up into the last 6 months of the contract. Of course, he could start negotiating with other teams in January. He did an interview with Inside United magazine when he said, I'll see how it is after Christmas and the busy Christmas programme, but let's read between the lines here. There's not a chance in hell that Rio is about to quit football. He uses his platform to build his other businesses, and he's still doing that, so he's not about to retire. Ferguson said a couple of weeks ago after the T-shirt row that he could play until his late 30s. Well, said he had another 3 years, which pretty much makes it late 30s, and I'm sure what is going on is that Rio and his team are after the best wage they can possibly get right now, and at least a 2-year contract. And United had a policy of offering one, and of course the rumour that went around earlier this season was that they'd offer one and about half these current wages.
I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because, you know, he really is going to have to decide between money and glory, isn't he? And the rumour about the MLS just makes so much sense with Brand Rio, you know. It'd be huge for him in terms of business opportunities, but I just think he's such a competitor, and when it comes down to it, what he really wants is to win stuff.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, I'd be surprised if Brand Rio has much resonance in the States. I mean, he plays for Manchester United, so that helps. There was a great caption, I think it was on a Reuters piece a couple of weeks ago, where it had David Beckham and some kids, and Robbie Keane, both play at LA, of course, and the caption said, soccer player David Beckham with some fans. Robbie Keane just wasn't recognised at all. Now, I suspect that's probably true of quite a lot of players who are not global superstars in the States. Although, you know, obviously, look, popularity of football is really growing and very fast in the States, and it's reflected in the fact that NBC paid a significant uplift on the previous contract to show the Premier League over the next sort of 3 seasons or so, beat Fox in the bidding war there. So it's really growing. The MLS thing has you know, rumours of Rio has been around an awful long time. Maybe he'll do it, maybe he won't. You know, I'm sure there'd be plenty of offers in terms of money. It's not as if he needs it though. He's had a decade on massive wages at United. He's set for life, and he's got all these other business interests. So it's going to be about either exploring one of these new opportunities or realising that he's a lesser ranked player at Old Trafford.
It'd be interesting to see what decision he makes, and either way I wish him well, because he's been a tremendous servant at Manchester United, albeit perhaps not so much on Saturday last week when we went 2-0 down to the mighty Aston Villa. Yeah, it'd be a complete walkover. It's like playing a championship team, you know. Oh, Villa are completely rubbish and hopeless. There's no chance they'll do any damage. 2-0 down after 50 minutes, and it's never simple with United.
It really isn't, and the defensive problems are myriad and quite deep-seated, aren't they? And it's a real worry, really is, how often Villa were able to get at us, and the pace of their forwards really did cause United some problems, and it can't keep going on. I mean, I feel like we say this every week, but it cannot keep going on. At some point, United are going to play someone decent, give away some goals, and not be able to come back.
Yeah, I mean, we've had loads and loads of questions about this on Twitter. One from Expert, she's saying, are United's early lapses a fault with the players, the preparation or the coaching? We had another question about whether it was to do with tactics or personnel. I suppose the answer has to be a bit of both. I mean, one of the real problems with our defence, again, on Saturday was the midfield. Paul Scholes having a rare shocker, basically, not really able to keep the ball, and gave it away really sloppily and dangerously a few times, including for the passage of play that led to Villa's second goal, albeit there was also some shambolic defending in that.
Right, and Villa were buzzing around him, and that didn't give him much time and space. And he had a bad one. He just had a really bad game. And he's had a couple of weeks off. Of course, Ferguson's given him a rest over the last few games, and Tom Cleverley had been in there and done pretty well, ish. And then Scholes came back in and didn't have a good one at all. But the problem is that Scholes-Carrick central midfield appears to offer absolutely no protection to the back four at all.
And that wasn't the case so much last season, I think.
Well, they kept the ball really well, didn't they? In the second half of last season, they kept the ball really well, and it felt like that there were other options. And I'm not sure whether they need to change the structure of the system or the personnel. I mean, I know it's a bit personnel. It's definitely a bit personnel. If we had a real evil bastard in the middle of the park, that would make a big difference, or at least someone who's pretty disciplined. But the system doesn't help at the moment, given the players available. So look, what's Ferguson going to do? Either he drops one of Rooney or Van Persie. That's never going to happen. Plays a lopsided sort of asymmetrical formation with only one winger, or he drops Rooney back into midfield, which is essentially what is happening at the moment, and tries to make an extra man in the centre of the park that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's the way he's accommodating all the personnel. And although Rooney does do a fairly disciplined defensive job, he's not exactly in the side to offer protection to the back four, is he?
Well, quite, although he is pretty disciplined, but yeah, no, it's not. He's not exactly going to be sitting in front of the back four, making sure that counter-attacks are broken up in the right way.
And I mean, I think one of the reasons that it was working last season and isn't working this season is to do with this thing that you've always said whenever we've discussed fullbacks, which is tactically Ferguson expects his central defenders to be able to handle it if there are no fullbacks, because the fullbacks are attacking. And last season, Johnny Evans and Rio Ferdinand were a pretty formidable central defensive partnership, and we've just not had a chance to establish one of those yet this season. So, the personnel issue goes back into defence as well. Rio has had patches of superb form, think of the Liverpool game in particular, but definitely a few lapses and not really just been able to cover for the amount of space he's expected to cover. Johnny Evans injured again. Chris Smalling came in and had a pretty woeful game, or at least a few specific woeful moments. He did a lot of stuff well as well, actually. So woeful game's probably a bit harsh, but just bounced off the ball by Benteke for Villa's first goal, almost looking for a foul where none could possibly come. Sort of pretty naive bit of defending, really. But, he is just back from injury, so it is to be expected. One thing that was really heartening is once we had our miraculous, awesome comeback, David De Gea 3 times, no less than 3 times, jumped through a crowd of players to punch the ball and clear the lines, which just phenomenal to see that. And this is what was happening last season when he had a run in the side, and that confidence comes back, and he starts to be a more dominant goalkeeper. So maybe he is starting to find his feet again.
Yeah, I agree with that last assessment. I think he definitely improves by playing all the time. So this thing at the beginning of the season when Ferguson was rotating the keepers all the time did not help him at all. We said it every week and couldn't understand why Ferguson insisted on doing it, and he's not doing it now. And that's a good thing, right? It's a good thing. Lindegaard's a fine keeper. He's not in the same class. De Gea is only going to get better by playing, and it affects his confidence significantly when he's dropped if he makes a single mistake. And he has to know that he can make a mistake and still be in the team, otherwise he's just going to be really tentative all the time. And surely that is the same for all players, all footballers, professional footballers, confidence players in some way or form. They all work on these razor-thin insecurities of whether they're in the side or not. And a young man in a far-off land from home, in a very key and vulnerable position, is just not helped by being dropped all of the time. So I hope that he gets a long run in the side now. And I agree. He came out twice and punched, and do you know what? He even punched so well that Alan Smith, the co-commentator on Sky TV for the Villa game, couldn't complain about it.
And that's a pretty remarkable achievement all in of itself. All right, so on to the happier times that were the comeback. 2 incidents I want to report, one of which was a United supporting friend of mine was in the home end and said at the point at which the second Villa goal went in, all of the Villa fan behind him was saying, "Oh no, I knew it, we've gone too early, we're going to get battered now." Not an optimistic bunch by nature, the Villa supporters. And the second thing was that the chief executive where I work now, his season ticket is quite near the dugout. He said as Hernandez come on, he saw him and saw the look in his eye and thought, because Hernandez just had point to prove written all over him. And he came through big time, didn't he?
He really did, yeah. Hat-trick, well, ish. 2.5 goals, maybe. We'll find out with the dubious goals panel, right? Look, just carrying on the form that he's been in recently. He's scored a bag full of goals, now feels confident. Interesting how Ferguson's going to squeeze him into the side. We talked about the balance of the forwards, didn't we, earlier in the show? And it seems almost impossible to get Hernandez into the side for the big games. And he's in danger of becoming sort of super sub. Good stat. He's scored 10 goals from substitute appearances, Hernandez. Solskjaer scored 16 in his whole United career. That's in the Premier League. But, so, he's already a super sub.
Yeah, absolutely. And, he's just so blooming likeable. I know I bang on about it all the time, but he's just a nice bloke, isn't he? And it's nice. It just doesn't happen very often. So when it does happen, I think it should be celebrated. And yeah, I mean, it's sort of a hat-trick, isn't it? You can argue, basically the argument is, was the ball going to curl into the far side of the goal if it hadn't been bounced in off a defender? I don't know. I think that is pretty marginal from the camera angles I've seen, but effectively he scored that goal anyway by banging it in off the defender. He just used the defender as a sort of obstacle or something. The finish for the first goal, when he kind of almost looked like he'd lost a gorgeous pass from Scholes, and then Cheech looked like he'd sort of lost the ball, got it caught up under his feet, but he managed to dig it out from under his feet and slide it through the legs of the keeper at the same time. Pretty remarkable.
Well, it was, yeah. It was pretty poor control to start with, I suppose. You want to be hypercritical, but he got it under control in the end, and yeah, you're right, slid it through the keeper's legs. Fine finish in the end. I'm pleased for him. You're right. He's a nice bloke and all of that, and he's very articulate, and he's a team man. He hasn't made any kind of fuss, at least in public, about not being in the team. And he had quite a tough season last season with multiple different injuries, and then in and out of the side, and it didn't seem to help his rhythm much. And he's another player who needs to play. Young player is only going to develop by playing, and it's hard on him that United bought Van Persie, but it's great for United because there are so many options available now.
Yeah, Ferguson saying after that game that he's played himself into the starting lineup. He's not going to drop a striker after he gets a hat-trick. So it looks like he's going to play. But you see, in a way, it's good for Ferguson to say that because it is away against Norwich. So it's not one of the hugest games of the season by any means, is it? So...
Yeah, because we played so well when we went there last season.
No, but it's not...
Well, look, Van Persie has his thigh injury as well, so it might be convenient to leave him out for a game and just make sure it's fully healed.
Oh yeah, worth saying that international break, Rooney and Van Persie are both injured, and I really, really hope that's injured in the way Ryan Giggs used to be injured when Wales had a friendly.
Yeah, I think they're both minor injuries of convenience, obviously, and it's not a fully sanctioned FIFA international break in that there isn't the double header, there's not World Cup qualifiers, and they don't have the extra weekend off and all of that kind of stuff. So Ferguson was always going to pull his most senior players out of fixtures.
Yeah,
great. Talking of international break, Zlatan Ibrahimovic for Sweden, talking about Steven Gerrard, who made his 100th appearance for England on Wednesday night, said that Gerrard ought to join a big club. For a player of his quality, I thought, yeah, about right there, Zlatan.
Yeah, I mean, old Stevie G has won the Champions League, hasn't he? So it's not like his career's been a complete failure, just the last 5 years or so.
There was a rather scurrilous thing doing around on Twitter where there were some suggestions that Ryan Giggs' wife might divorce him and take half of his possessions, as is the way in divorce cases and all that, and she'd have 6 more Premier League titles than Stevie G.
Mrs. Giggsy 6, Gerrard 0. Yeah, Steven Gerrard's career is an odd thing. I mean, he's a Liverpool man. What's he supposed to do? The one time it was really serious that they might leave, he had every reason to think that things were changing. They just won the Champions League, and yeah, there was a huge amount of good fortune in them winning that, but basically that was it. It was that season where he had the really serious offer to go to Chelsea and ultimately thought that they could have a crack at the league at Liverpool. And we're United fans, so it's easy to mock, but kind of think it's fair enough in some ways.
I wouldn't mock Stevie G. Kisses a badge on his chest, puts in a transfer request. No, not at all. Yeah, Liverpool came out with the numbers, otherwise he'd have gone. That's the cynical view and probably the correct one. The loyalty's all well and good as long as there are zeros in the cheque. Just ask Alan Shearer.
I just don't buy that though. I don't see how the 10 grand here or there a week is really going to make that much difference. Maybe I'm stupid.
I mean, that's pretty naive, Paul. 5 grand a week for Ashley Cole made him up sticks from Arsenal to Chelsea, didn't it?
Yeah, that's true. He nearly crashed his car. It was really exciting, that comeback against Sevilla. It was comical the way that game played out. It was just a ridiculous parody because we were absolutely hopeless in the first half. We didn't look at the races at all. And you say Villa pressed Scholes quite well, but he also gave the ball away when he was not under any pressure at all a few times. And there's just a slight concern in that for me because this is what happened the season before last. His performances really, really started to drop off. And we've talked a bit, and he just had a couple of weeks rest, and we talked a bit about how he's having getting plenty of rest and maybe not performing the best this season. But yeah, United's overall play was so lacklustre and just casual. And then even when they went 1-0 down, they hadn't really switched on. But once they went 2-0 down, it was just like somebody flicked a switch and United were like, oh no, we're 2-0 down. We're actually going to have to play if we want to win this game. And play they did. And that Chicharito-inspired comeback, yet another one. What is going on? Why can't we play before we go 2-0 down?
Yeah, I wonder if it's become a little mental thing or maybe it's just ill fortune. I think United have got something like 16 Premier League points from losing positions this season. It is remarkable that the Reds keep coming back. It's also really worrying because it's not going to keep happening. I know I keep saying this every week, but it's just not. The next time United are 2-0 down, they're not going to automatically come back. Although it did just kind of feel, maybe 2-0's the new 1-0, you know, it's the new, it's just not safe being 2-0. You need 3 to be safe against United.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Tottenham wouldn't have been safe if they'd only been at 2-0. It was that third goal that did for us. I don't know what's going to change because nothing's changing in terms of personnel or systems, is it? So it's just going to keep happening. We're just going to keep scoring one more than our nearest rival. And
right.
Yeah, I agree that at the highest level, it looks to me like we'll be getting found out, but we don't need to succeed at the very highest level to win the league this season. We just need to keep battering every team from third place on down.
Well, I suppose so. I mean, that's a fairly solid argument, that one. Although if it comes down to just a few points or goals here or there, as it did last season, then losing to your closest rivals probably wouldn't be very good. Although United have done fine against the top teams we've played this season and Liverpool. The interesting thing is Ferguson said he wants 100 goals, and we're just over a quarter of the way through the season and 29 goals already. It's quite possible. Chelsea did it a couple of seasons ago. They had a couple of freak results in there, like an 8-0 and a 7-0 a couple of times, didn't they? And that kind of skewed things a little bit. United are just scoring every game, but we haven't had a 6, 7 or 8 yet this season. Someone could go for 8, but we probably concede 4 at the same time.
Yeah, I was just thinking someone is going to get a proper battering. Someone's going to get, the 2 hat-trick performance where Van Persie scores 3 and Cheech scores 3 and Rooney gets a couple or something like that. It does look like it's somewhere on the cards. A word for Van Persie. He's very good, isn't he, Ed? Robin Van Persie. He's very good at football and stuff. And he's nice when he plays for Man United and that.
Yeah, there was an interesting couple of comments on the blog this week where someone said that can't you just tell the difference when you buy a player of the very highest quality? And United spent quite a lot of money over the last 2 summers. It's around about 100 million gross, quite a lot less than that net because got rid of a few players and stuff like that. But he's arguably, of all the players that United have bought over the last 2 summers, the only one that's really improved the first team, arguably. Smalling and Jones were squad additions, really young. Yeah, bit near on that one. De Gea, a replacement for Van der Sar, and hasn't improved the first team yet. Might do one day. And so he's come in and made a really big difference. Now, if you take that argument to sort of its logical conclusion, would United have been better off, instead of buying 10 players over the last 2 summers, having bought 5 or 3 and all of them be of the very, very highest quality? I'm not sure. I mean, the squad's important, isn't it? But, what would United do if we had a midfielder of Van Persie's quality? He's made an instant impact at United and a really big one at that. And if we'd done that in midfield as well, we'd be almost unstoppable, I think.
Well, it's an interesting question, though, isn't it? Because who is there that you could get that's in that calibre? And where does Van Persie stand in the pantheon of world football? What is his position? Is he in the top 5? All that sort of stuff. And really, could we have signed a midfielder of that standard? Is one available?
Well, everyone's available for cash.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good point. I mean, in fact, last summer was just a whole stream of midfielders moving from one club to another, just sort of whizzing past us going, Luka Modric goes one way, is Javi Martinez going the other way, it's all getting a bit ridiculous.
Well, there's 2 that would have done quite a good job at United. All
right, so that's enough talk about football for 1 week. It's time to talk about Twitter questions. At Tommy_CTS asks, as Pop Svengalis, if you were assembling a 4-piece boy band from the current squad, who would get the nod and why? I've thought quite a lot about this. That's not true. You've got to have Chicharito, obviously. How are you going to make a boy band out of the United side and not have the...
Boyish good looks.
Yeah, exactly, the boy next door type. Then, you've got to have the kind of slightly odd-looking one that writes the song, so I think Phil Jones is a good shout for that, with his gurning and his frosted highlights. I think that's good. Then, maybe you get Chris Smalling in there, that picture of him with an afro, he could dig that hair cut out again and bust some moves.
You need diversity in a good boy band, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Marketability.
Yeah, exactly. Appealing to various different demographics, and that leaves one last slot, and it's difficult because I don't know whether to go for Tom Cleverley or evil twin Tom Cleverley, Alex Boutner, for that kind of bad boy image. I think maybe we'll go for a bit of bad boy Boutner.
Very good.
Yeah, that's my 4-piece boy band. What would they be called? Phil Jones and the Frosted Tips? No, that's not.
Let's just leave it there. It's a family show.
Yeah, absolutely. Awate says, if Cantona plays at an Old Trafford testimonial in August, should Albert the Kitman stitch on a collar to whatever United shirt is currently being worn?
A dog collar. He is at one with God, after all.
Obviously he should stitch on a collar. Eric should never play without a collar. At Mark_Pud asks, if you could combine any two United players into a super player, who would you choose? He would choose a hybrid of Roy Keane and Cristiano Ronaldo. That is a hybrid which would split itself apart as the two different sides of its personality ran in opposite directions from one another, I think.
Yeah, I think the dark matter involved in that would probably end the universe as we know it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you could sort of mix Brian Robson with whatever it is in Patrice Evra that makes it impossible for him to get injured, then that'd be a pretty impressive player.
Talking of Patrice Evra, the boy has returned to form.
Yes.
I think it's fair to say, isn't it? Excellent performances over the last month, 6 weeks.
And did a good job as captain as well. We'd had that little discussion, and then he did a bit of captaining against Aston Villa. Yeah, lovely to see. A big fan of Patrice. He has had a rough time of it. Last season, I think, was the real low point of that, and he gets a lot of stick from fans. And I do think a good part of that is because he's asked to do such a difficult job.
Well, yeah, it is a good part of that, and he played so many games, and I think he suffered a bit of burnout. I think what Boutner's acquisition has done is shown us there was also a little bit of complacency there, because all of a sudden the performances seem to have gone up a notch because there's a bit of competition.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think, he's also, he's very clearly demonstrating that it's not really quite competition yet. It's definitely more cover than competition, but the fact that kind of Boutner impressed quite a lot on his first outing. 2 goals for Evra as well. He never scores. Always hits the post or just misses, and he's managed to turn that determination into goals as well.
Right, yep.
Yeah. No, but also, he really is doing his defensive duty, which is what people have been upset about, isn't it? Talking of Patrice, at MattDales87 asks, who is Evra's long-term replacement? Fabio, Boutner or Blackett? Or none of the above, I think we have to add.
Yeah, I think none of the above is probably favourite, actually. I'm not sure what I've seen of Boutner so far that he's of the same standing as Evra at all. I mean, certainly not defensively. And we're talking about Patrice having some defensive problems over the last couple of years. Blackett I like, actually, but he's so young, it's impossible to know whether he's ever going to make it. I think he's got loads and loads of attributes, but we'll find out in the next 3 years. Fabio, I don't think Ferguson trusts him, and he's got to stay fit and he's got to perform, and of course he's not fit at the moment, so that doesn't really bode well for him. But look at the talent that Raphael's got and is now showing, in the kind of consistency. If we could have that in Fabio, that would be fantastic. He could be another right-footed left-back like Dennis Irwin, and wouldn't that be an accolade?
I like Dennis Irwin is the highest accolade that any left-back can possibly get, isn't it?
At United, it's a very high accolade.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't understand this question, but just in case, I'm going for it. This is from @CanTheyScore, from the fantastic Can They Score podcast and website. It says, if you were a speed limit, what would you be and why?
I don't know.
No.
70?
What you're saying is you're fundamentally law-abiding. Is that right, Ed?
I was kind of thinking that it's a speed limit, right? So I can't have unlimited, because that's not a limit.
Okay, right. No.
But 70 being the fastest you're allowed to go in this fair country, I like to get there quickly.
All right. Well, you don't want to like up it a bit and be 80 or like an Autobahn style 120. At Anton Alfie, the maker of fantastic videos, I mentioned the Cantona one last week, and if it's even possible, he's topped it with a magnificent Robin Van Persie video. Now, I have to say, there's a lot of videos, football cut together videos on YouTube, but this kid has proper talent.
Do you know what the secret sauce is
What's
with
that?
his talent? Beautifully cut together, he doesn't use crap Europop.
Well, that definitely helps, but the visuals are really smart as well. Like there's a penalty and he uses the TV footage, but also he's intercut it with 3 or 4 different angles of people that shot it from behind the goal on their phones. Anyway, so his question is, name your worst Fantasy United 11 using only players that we saw during our lifetimes.
I did have a little think about this one, and so yeah, let's go through our options. I mean, I've been following United since very nearly the 70s, around about 1980-ish, I suppose. To be honest, I don't really remember an awful lot before 1983, so my choices are going to be all after 83,
Okay.
and probably skewing towards the Ferguson era more.
Which is a shame because Atkinson had some whoppers, didn't he?
He did have some whoppers, actually, yeah.
But yeah, okay, so in goal, I guess it's a little unfortunate, but there really is only one option for this selection, isn't there? Or have you got too much of a soft spot for the boy Massimo?
I have no soft spot for him. I'd say Mark Bosnich's second period with United was a bit of a calamity. He couldn't kick the ball for toffee, but we also know why he couldn't kick the ball for toffee, because he was high all the time.
He was.
Allegedly.
Well, and also definitely, right?
Chelsea, quite happy to sack people that are high on drugs, 2 of them, but racist, nah, not so much.
Oh, no, not so much. All right, so that's Massimo. Who's your right back, Ed?
Well, this is a difficult one because I don't think United have had too many terrible right-backs, thinking about it. I mean, actually, Ferguson's had some very good ones. So, good ones here. Anderson was excellent. Paul Parker, excellent. Gary Neville, wonderful. And so maybe there's a couple of dodgy ones in there. David May played a couple of games at right-back, didn't he? Got absolutely roasted by Jesper Blomqvist and one time. And Henningberg played a few games there. He was good at centre-back, Henningberg. Had a good few years with United. Not so great at right back, but that's a tough one. Your choice?
My choice for worst right back ever was Gary Neville that one time against West Bromwich. Phew, that was some pretty ropey football.
That was only 45 minutes before he went off into the dressing room and retired.
Yeah, well, there you go. He was so bad at right back in that game that he retired. Someone that Giggsy has definitely played left back. I'm pretty sure I remember Lee Sharp playing left back at some point as well.
Lee Sharp started off as a left back at Torquay and played a few games for United at left back, but there have been some whoppers at left back. Come on. Quinton Fortune at left back, played there quite a few times. Never played well. Never. Nice guy, Quinton Fortune, but never played well.
Manchester United left-back legend Quinton Fortune. I'll give you that. I think Fortune's good. Centre-backs, Michael Carrick has got to be in with a shout.
He is horrendous as a centre-back, but he's not a centre-back.
No, that's true, so it's not fair. Out-of-position players doesn't count, does it? No, fair enough.
No. William Prunier, who was on loan with United for 2 games and had an absolute shocker twice.
Yeah, so does he play in a back 3 or have you got another one?
Well, I find this one really difficult. Yeah, I mean, there was some real cloggers. So Mal Donaghy was pretty awful. Zero talent whatsoever, but all heart, no talent.
I don't know, I can't remember. We have been absolutely blessed in that position, haven't we? We've had some incredible players at centre half, but apart from...
Oh, God. Ferdinand, Stam, Ronnie Johnson, Pallister, Bruce, Vidic, some absolute stormers down in the Ferguson era.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a time when it looked like Johnny Evans might be the answer to this question, but that time has long since passed because he's growing into a fine defender himself. In the middle of the park then, yeah, sport for choice really. I guess we'll start with the boy with 2 names, shall we? So bad they named him twice, Eric Jemba.
The Jemba twins, yeah, he's taking up the 2 midfield positions.
You mean he's squeezed Liam Miller out the squad?
God, Miller was awful. Kleberson was awful too.
The thing about Liam Miller is I'm not sure how bad or good he was as a player, but he really was being sold as the new Roy Keane.
He was, and yeah, so the hype didn't help him. And then Kleberson. So Ferguson took a player who was essentially a defensive midfielder and had one good outing in the Brazil squad and tried to turn him into a player who could play in the whole. It didn't work the first time. It didn't work the 50th time that Ferguson tried it either.
I remember watching the game, sat in your old seat down by the corner flag, and the bloke behind us just turning to his girlfriend and saying they should make him give back his World Cup winners medal about Kleberson. Fergie signed the wrong Brazilian, clearly. He's got to be one of the worst Brazilians ever to win the World Cup, hasn't he, Kleberson?
Yeah, there haven't been many terrible Brazilians, but he was one. On occasion, Anderson over the last 5 years has tried to challenge him, but, no, clearly in a different market altogether. But yeah, Kleberson, real shame, because, he had a fine fine career all round, except for that period at United. And I guess it was one of those where an agent really sold the player really well to Ferguson, and he bought it.
The wings and up front, that's pretty tricky, isn't it? Because that's been all class really over the years as well, hasn't it?
There's been some stinkers though. Jordi Cruyff. Stinker.
Oh, that's harsh on the boy Jordi. I always quite liked Jordi Cruyff.
Nah, he wasn't very good. Karel Poborski.
Oh, come on, that chip, man. Remember that chip he done? Come on, forget all the rest of it. There was that chip.
Danny Wallace. Terrible.
The wrong Wallace.
Very much so. Ralph Milne. Regularly tops the list of worst United players ever. I feel sorry for Ralph Milne. He was essentially a left back and played on the left wing a few times and wasn't very good.
No, he has become bizarrely central in United fandom, though, in recent years, along with Ken Barlow.
What about Gianno Majorana? He was pretty awful. He had a few games for United. Does he even count? Because he wasn't even really... He had the curly hair, remember him?
No, I literally do not remember him. The name...
He sounded all exotic, but wasn't.
Yeah, that name's ringing a vague bell of, like, oh, he must have been quite exciting. What about up front, then? Have we had any bad strikers since Peter Davenport?
David Bellion.
Well, was he really a striker? He was a bit of a winger as well, wasn't he?
No, he was a striker. He was like 5'8" of leg and then a head on top. He was like Starving Marvin without the body, and he could barely put one foot in front of the other without falling over.
So David Bellion and Peter Davenport up front, although I think that's harsh on Peter Davenport, who had a perfectly good career, but just wasn't...
Bebe might challenge them. Pretty horrendous. Diego Forlan, I mean, he's a good player actually, Forlan. It didn't work for him at United, did he?
Yeah, he's a phenomenal player, so I don't think he can count really. Otherwise you'd have Juan Seba Veron in midfield and that would be ridiculous too, yeah.
Well, quite.
At bifurcated_MUFC asks, on a Rantcast day out whitewater rafting with Welbs, Chicha, ORVP and Rooney, capsize, you have 3 life jackets. I presume that means apart from the one that you're wearing yourself. Who'd you save? So you've got to let one of those strikers fend for himself, Ed.
You're in the raft too.
Yeah, you're in the raft too, but I think you've probably got a life jacket of your own.
I'm chucking you over the side. We need 4 strikers.
That's perfectly reasonable. I think I might leave Van Persie to fend for himself because he's just so competent and grown-up seeming that I reckon he could do it. We had a question from Maz_man_UTD saying, do we think Berbatov could have done what Robin Van Persie's doing given the chance? Can't say RVP runs that much more than Berber. I miss Berber. No way. He's not in the same class.
Well, he doesn't have the same output. He's doing really well at Fulham, isn't he? And he's got 5 goals already, and Fulham fans seem to have taken Berber to their hearts, and he's got a couple against Arsenal at the weekend, seems to be doing really well. And look, he's too good for Fulham, but for some reason it just didn't work for him at United. Often played out of position, but he got plenty of games, right? He just didn't have the same output, so answer the question, no, he couldn't do what Van Persie's doing.
Everyone knows about my Berbatov love, and I'm also absolutely delighted to see him banging them in against Fulham. It was great when he got a couple against Arsenal in particular. That was just lovely to see, and it is great to see him be the main man in a side. But the more I see Van Persie, the more I think he's in that very small number of real best player in the world type category players, and it is really interesting how the blinkers come off, because I guess what it's ultimately to do with is just seeing so much more of him, because I don't really watch that much of him when he was at Arsenal, just see him on Match of the Day or when they played us. But seeing him week in, week out, you just grow to appreciate that absolute clinicalness. And, he just backs himself way more than Berbatov ever could,
Yeah, very true. Well, so look, we should move on from Twitter questions. So we should have a quick chat about United's financials. Q1 results out.
Woo, woo, woo! Q1! What's the implications for the long-term future and short-term future of Manchester United, Ed?
Well, it's a disaster. We're going to melt down tomorrow, and we should all give up and go support Rochdale.
Boo.
No. To be honest, Q1's pretty dull.
Unlike that Q3, eh, kids?
Oh, yeah, I mean, Q3 gives me a semi every time. Q1, nah, not so much. Well, so what? Wages are up 6.5%. In fact, this is year-on-year figures. But in fact, United actually got a bit of a bonus from taking in receipts from the European Championship. So under the new deal, clubs get paid for the players they donate to these big championships. And so actually wages would have gone up 10% year-on-year. And that kind of wage inflation is putting on a lot of pressure on United's finances. What else happened? United paid down about 62 and a bit million pounds worth of debt from the flotation in New York, so total debts are around 360 now.
That seems like it's getting more manageable.
More manageable. I love that one. Yeah, brilliant. So more manageable. It's only taken the 7 years and £550 million worth of interest payments to make the debt manageable. But it is true that it's the first time since the Glazers took over that gross debt is below £400 million. Net debt, a touch over 300 million, 307 and a bit. You could put it this way: if United didn't spend any money on transfers at all over the next 5 years, we'd be debt free.
Woo, woo, woo.
We'd also be shit.
Yeah, that's the slight downside. Any noticeable bump from the ridiculous levels of commercial pushing around Van Persie signing? Because I certainly don't remember anything like that in the history of my time supporting the club.
Yes, so it's a record quarterly turnover. So yes, some of it has. There's a little bit of prepayment from Chevy in there. Of course, United did an interesting thing in the last quarter and fired DHL. Bought out the contract. This was the one that we were oohing and ahhing about, 40 million 4-year sponsorship for the training kit. So United, after the Chevy deal, believe they'll get even more.
It's really interesting because, I thought that deal seemed insane, but boy, have I seen the DHL logo a lot of times in the last 3 months or 4 months or however long it is.
Well, yeah, they got some great exposure, and I think United have, Edward Woodward, the Chief Commercial Officer, is very, very bullish on United's revenue outlook. And of course, they're very aggressive on revenues and basically just don't read any of the press where Woodward's being quoted, because it's kind of sickening, to be honest, because it's not about football, it's just about exploitation of the brand all the time. And you read enough of that and you forget what United's about. There is actually a football team as well, in the midst of all this brand and exploitation and new markets and how wonderful the States is, and that's new frontier for us and all that kind of crap. And there is a football team in there, but revenues are increasing. They have to, because United do need to sprint to stand still. The debt payoff was a chunk from the IPO, but there are going to be costs associated with that. Actually, there was a £24 million coupon in this quarter on the bond payment, and I expect we'll see bond payments refinanced. Not really near term, but in the next couple of years they'll look to pull down the interest payments, because if they want to maximise their asset when they eventually sell the Glazers, then that's what they'll do. Of course, they run all their businesses with debt, so I think this question about becoming debt-free is a little bit moot. It would be unusual for them.
What the fans want, of course, is not that United are debt-free, but that United are free from the negative impact of debt in terms of competitiveness on the pitch, right? Because that's what it's all about, isn't it, for us?
Well, and not getting shafted when it comes to ticket prices.
Yeah, of course. There's definitely signs that is starting to happen, but it's not full blown yet. We're not getting Arsenal quite yet, are we?
No, not a £94.50 ticket or whatever it was. It's quite insane, really, some of Arsenal's tickets. But of course, there's plenty of premium tickets at Old Trafford too, and those kind of prices are charged. And it is quite noticeable that more games are going on open sale. There are quite a lot of tickets available for away matches these days. It didn't used to be. Part of that's because away teams charge so much as well for United fans to go. There's some real stinkers in there, £50, £60 tickets and all of that kind of stuff. Football as a whole, we talk about the boom in rights, and the latest Premier League deal will pull in, including all the foreign rights, around about 5 billion, right? So this is big. It's massive how much football is sucking in, but the wage inflation is out of control, and as a result, fans are getting screwed everywhere. And I can't see the end to it. They're now talking about a sort of financial fair play type system in the Premier League, which of course would play into United's hands. United being, cash rich and debt heavy, so it would lock in the established order, which is what UEFA's version will do as well.
Illuminati.
Yeah, David Gill is pushing for it hard, and he might get his way. It looks like he needs 14 votes, and at the last count he definitely had 12 with a few waivers, so he might well get his way.
Interesting, talking of tickets in general sale, Villa tickets in the home end against Man United on sale for £25 the week before the fixture. That they really are having trouble at that team. A lot of disenchantment, obviously, because that's the flip side of it. It goes away so quickly. The bubble is a wafer thin, isn't it? As soon as there is a lack of success or perceived entertainment on the pitch, then demand starts to deflate very quickly. And you look at City, with all their rampant success, this is not like random team point scoring, but City just do not have the fan base to sustain their stadium because they're empty seats every game. And this is the most successful period in their, certainly in living memory of most of their fans.
Yeah, but I thought all football fans in Manchester were City fans. Confused here.
Fairly demonstrably not the case, isn't it? So, financials out the way, only left to preview a very meaningful game against Norwich away. This, of course, was Ryan Giggs' 900th game last season, where, in honour of narrative, he scored a glorious last-minute winner after an absolutely horrendous fixture. And I think it could be tough again, although I do think we've just got the firepower this time to do the damage we need to do. Then a very meaningless fixture against Galatasaray. Realistically, is he? I mean, he'll play Lindegaard, but is he gonna dip into the reserves in the youth team? Do you think in that game?
For the Galatasaray one, I wouldn't have thought so. I mean, maybe a couple of younger players will play, but I think he'll dip into the fringes of the squad first. Players who really need some games, and we'll see something akin to a Carling Cup-ish side, maybe a little bit stronger because it's away in Turkey. That's a tough fixture, and I don't think anyone wants to United beaten heavily. But 4 wins out of 4, definitely qualified first. So that one should be easy. Norwich at the weekend, it's been a tough fixture. It was last season, and United played in, I think we used the word complacent an awful lot in our review last year, didn't we? Because it was that kind of performance. And Norwich aren't doing great this season, new manager, and they're down in the bottom half. They've got a little bit of breathing room above QPR, Southampton and Reading, who are all at the bottom, but they're definitely going to be in the mix come the relegation fight at the end of the season. And Paul Lambert's moved on, of course, and so they're not having a wonderful time at the moment.
Well, I mean, you say that, but their form is definitely on the up. They had an absolutely disastrous start to the season.
That's right.
Chris Hughton's got them working, actually.
Yeah, unbeaten in a few matches now, and they good victory over Tottenham, didn't they, in the League Cup? I know, weird teams and all of that, but they're picking up points here and there.
They beat Arsenal in the league 2 weeks ago, so they're becoming that team that they were, dangerous at home. Grant Holt's going to give our dysfunctional central defence a heck of a time, I think, with his big lumbering ways.
Yeah, I think they have more problems with pace these days, but he will give United a challenge, and it will be a tough fixture. We said last week that we expected United to thrash Villa because Villa was so terrible, so perhaps we ought to swing back the other way in our reactions and say this is going to be a tight one.
Well, I mean, I'm not doing it for that reason, but I genuinely do think it's going to be a tight one because Norwich have been improving lately, and it's a horrible away trip. It's it's just awkward to get to and all that kind of stuff. Norwich and Galatasaray in the space of a week. That's a real welcome to hell situation, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, I guess I think we'll win, but we're definitely going to concede because we always concede, don't we? So I'm going to go with another 3-2, I think.
Maybe we're not going to concede, so I'm going to say 1-0 to United.
1-0 to United? Do you really think that is a mathematically possible result anymore?
Yes, it's definitely mathematically possible.
All right, I hope you're right. I don't know. I don't know if I hope you're right, really. I'm quite enjoying all these ridiculous games. It's been a very fun season. And I think the fun will continue in Norwich. I'm not sure the fun will continue away in Galatasaray with us really not needing anything out of that game.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's going to be a tough fixture. I mean, Turkish football's not really on the up at the moment, what with all the bribery scandals and all of that, and the national team is actually not that great at the moment either. So it's not a golden period for Turkish football, and United have actually got some very good results against Turkish teams in recent seasons. A couple of bad ones in there too. I think United will go there and get a draw with a scratch side, and so I'm going to say 1-1 for that one.
Okay, I mean, the thing about that fixture is it is completely and utterly meaningless. The only thing that matters in that fixture is that we don't get key injuries because there's literally nothing at stake. So, playing the actual youth team, the actual under-21s wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. I mean, I guess something about momentum isn't there, but I mean, you certainly wouldn't want to risk anyone in that fixture because we're top of that group. We can lose both games 8-0 and still qualify top of the group, right?
Yes, but that wouldn't do anyone any good, would it? Losing 8-0 twice. Yeah, silly. So naive.
No, you're right.
So, before we move on, we have a competition.
Oh, it's exciting. This is like properly exciting. This is not just some random thing that I ended up with in my possession. This is a proper good prize.
This is a proper good prize. So, yeah, we have one half-eaten cheeseburger mailed to you within 28 days.
And without fail, if you don't get it within 28 days, you can sue the post office. That's totally within your rights.
Aside from that, second prize is a Savile Rogue cashmere football scarf. I've seen these. They are very nice and I'd like one. Comes in Manchester United red, white and black. There's no branding on it. It's just an old-fashioned cashmere football scarf. And Savile Rogue have offered us one for our very nice listeners. So that's savile-rogue.com. You need to answer this question.
The question we were going to ask originally is why on earth should I, the listener, get this ahead of one of the two co-hosts of this podcast that both want this? But that was rejected, and we decided to go with Ed's question, which was...
Name your Manchester United Rogues 11. The bad boys of Manchester United. And you've got to tweet that at us, so it's going to be interesting trying to cram this into 140 characters. But tweet that at us. Make sure you tag it, #Rantcast, and then we'll be able to find you.
This is a very nice piece of actual human fashion, isn't it, Ed? This is on or off terrace type item, this is.
Yeah, you can give it your Euro knot and look just like Roberto Mancini.
And what United fan, after all, doesn't want to look just like Roberto Mancini? And on that note, we leave you to think of your Rogues 11, and if you would also like to leave us a review on iTunes, that would be awesome. You can get me at UTD Rantcast on Twitter. Thank you very much to everyone who's got in touch in the last couple of weeks to say they've started listening to the show recently. Tell all your friends if you like it, why not? You can get Ed at United Rant, and you can hook up with us on Facebook, facebook.com/United Rant. You can go to unitedrant.co.uk, look at the show page, look at all the amazing content there. There's unitedrant.co.uk/donate if you want to give us money for some reason. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you can if you want to. So thank you very much indeed for listening, and we'll be back with another one of these next week.
See you then.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.